Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I want to talk a little bit about dealing with depression. Depression can creep up on you without warning and without really even a significant trigger, especially when we're going through this type of stuff. Typically we're going to have a lot of different things going on, kind of like a lot of balls in the air, which can make it really complicated because that can really start stressing you and bringing you down. Lowering, in a previous video I've talked about, having your bucket filled so it can start draining your bucket, and that can be a byproduct of that going on to where you can start getting depressed. And when you're going through this, when you have a lot of significant issues you're dealing with and trauma, and even if you're used to it and you have a pretty good understanding of what you're dealing with, that doesn't mean that you're still not susceptible to things wearing you down and enabling depression to actually set in. Okay, so the one thing you have to recognize is, there's a bunch of different things that can happen, right? Like I said before, we have a lot of different things going on. So, it can be a combination of all these things. It can be stress at work. It can be, typically in these situations, your finances are significantly drained because you have money being pulled out for support and alimony and stuff like that. And you still have to, survive on your own as well. If you're in another relationship, that can actually add additional stress to it. Hopefully it doesn't. Deadlines with, it could be work, it could be school. Even your kids can actually add stress and extra stress onto you, which could actually trigger depression. And then you have issues with your own family. Some of us have really supportive families. Some of us have, partly supportive families, and others of us have absolutely non-supportive families. And all those different, it's kind of interesting because, as long as a few of those areas are going okay, then a lot of times we'll have the perseverance and the endurance to be able to work through this and minimize the impact or get through it with not a big amount of stress and or depression setting in. I think the big thing on this, though, is you have to recognize that it's actually a possibility, and you have to recognize that it's a normal thing that can happen as a result of this. So, if you, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but if you're in a situation where you feel that it's coming on, if you feel like you're being overwhelmed, you need to take steps to try to stop it and to change your environment, minimize chaos or minimize the stress to allow you to recharge those batteries, fill that bucket back up, and be able to deal with it. But it's crucial whenever you can recognize it. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to before you really recognize it, having something happen and you start to get depressed, and then, like I've talked about this before, then it starts snowballing, and you just can't seem to get out of it, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. But a lot of times the reason it gets worse and worse and worse is because some of the decisions that we're making that don't necessarily help us, right? Now, those topics I mentioned previously, you don't really have a lot of control over that, right? If things are going on at work, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to control that or mitigate that. If you're having trouble with finances, there are some things you can do, but it's still, a lot of these things are a little bit outside your control. What is within your control is what you decide to do and what you decide to surround yourself with. So for instance, and I think if any of, okay, so for the folks out there who haven't really had an issue with depression, then this video will basically not make any sense. But if you have had this issue, I am sure that you can relate to or remember that you get into this mode and then you do things to make it worse. Like you find the most depressing music or triggering music that makes you feel worse, or it amplifies that that emotion, or that, you know, making you feel more down, more depressed, more sad, and that. The same thing with movies. I mean, you can pick movies that just make you feel tense and make you feel, I mean, and it could be a real stressful, action-packed movie with a lot of suspense, or it could even be a, you know, romantic comedy, or just some type of depressing movie. And the main thing to remember on this is, if you find yourself falling into that mode, you need to, now that you can recognize it, you need to take a step back and you need to make decisions that don't amplify or intensify the depression. You need to do things that try to break you out of that. And we've talked about that in other videos, you know, I mean, and there's a bunch of different suggestions on that, from, you know, from exercising to eating different, you know, all those things are important. And it all boils down to our own decisions, right? Our own choices that we make, you know, and sometimes it's really tough. I mean, whenever you start getting depressed and you start going down that road, making great decisions isn't easy, right? But I think that if you can recognize what you're doing, some of the big ones that really help amplify that amplify the beginning stages of it, you can do stuff to break you out of it. You know, like watching a positive movie or watching a funny movie, you know, going out and doing something, getting out of your environment, or cleaning your environment up. I know even for me, whenever I get down, I do less around the house. The house gets more messy. I get more stressed about it. And it's like a feedback loop. And your environment is, you know, I mean, then your environment isn't helping. When you walk back into your home, it's not giving you a sanctuary feel or a positive feel. It's giving you like, oh crap, I'm overwhelmed, I'm behind, I can't, you know, my house is a mess, it's dirty, you know, this is stacked up, that's stacked up. And again, it's like I said, it's like a feedback loop or a snowball effect where it just gets worse. But we can take little steps to try to help that. So and bottom line, guys, if it persists, you know, if you get stuck in a depression and nothing is really helping, you have to seek help, right? There are so many things out there that can help. I mean, you know, there's things you can do constructively, there's therapy. I mean, you know, worst case scenario, there's even medications and stuff that help. But you don't want to allow yourself to get into a situation to where you just continually spiral out of control. And when you're dealing with a narcissistic ex and all the chaos and trauma that ensues around dealing with custody issues and school with your kids and teacher and all those things, it can be overwhelming. And if you find yourself getting worn down, taking proactive steps to help get you out of it, I mean, it's crucial for you and it's crucial for your kids. You know, it's crucial to be able to build that environment that is helpful and keeps you in a positive state. And it's real easy as things start adding up for you to basically lose sight of that and start letting things go. I mean, it even happens with me. You know, I'll get, you know, have so much things going on, you're not able to keep up. You're just kind of treading water, and then things start falling off, and it just kind of compounds it. But you know, I know what I need to do to get my environment back under control, to get everything stable, to, you know, help me help myself. Yeah, to help me help myself. And that's the same type of stuff that you need to look at. So, okay, so I'm going to wrap this video up. If you have some ideas and some techniques that you use to help whenever you identify that a depression, if you're dealing with this, if depression is coming in, what you do to try to stop it. I know some people have talked about some other things before to help, I guess, rejuvenate you. But I wanted to talk specifically about whenever a depression is creeping in on you and what you do to try to stop it, stop it in its tracks, reverse it, and get your emotional state back on track. If you can relate to this video, give it a thumbs up. If the channel is helping you, please subscribe, and I will talk to you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.